How that the Super Bowl had passed, I wanted to discuss the conversations around it. You know the whole Kendrick Lamar and Drake thing. A 40-year-old Serena Williams crip walking because doing gang affiliate dances are cool apparently because she is sticking it to Drake. The discussion between the quarterbacks and their wives' races. I know a lot of dumb shit not involving the game. But in all fairness, the game was not very good. Then there was a dumbass conversation about Patrick Mahomes and his race.
The most prolific, if not the most prolific storyline headline, my God, is the two black quarterbacks that are starting, and that's never happened historically before. And
I want to start out by saying this video was made about the 2023 Super Bowl, but the same conversation was being had about this year's Super Bowl. So you see the air quotes when she says two black quarterbacks, right? I may regret this, but let's hear her out.
There's been a debate that has come upon us, and I don't even think it's a debate. And that is, with everything being pushed about these two black QBs, Patrick Mahomes' heritage, right? And, a lot of people claiming him as black, inaccurate. And, when you point that out, that seems to be an issue. You're questioning his blackness, or, I don't know, espousing white supremacy or some shit like that.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Again, with the air quotes. I'm starting to think she does not know how to use air quotes properly. You just said Patrick being black was inaccurate. Then you use air quotes for people saying that is questioning his blackness. How is it not?
Yeah, it's so dumb. But I'm here to tell everybody to, one, get a grip, and two, internalize this. Patrick Mahomes is not a black man. Patrick Mahomes is not a black man.
You need to leave.
He's not, okay? I feel like there's a few things at play here.
She talking about there are things at play here. Not things, just one thing, and that thing is people being stupid.
First of all, it's people just not knowing how genetics work.
Genetic doesn't determine one's race so clearly. She is the one that doesn't understand genetics. But we will get to that later.
But I think there's also a social aspect to it too. So, first of all, I think a lot of people are under the one drop rule mindset, right?
Patrick Mahomes has an entire parent that is black, and we are talking a 1% rule. She also briefly mentioned interracial corn for unknown reasons that I cut out. It's also not 1%, it more like 50. We're not talking about a mostly white person who has a great-great-grandfather who is black.
Right? So you would think after abolition, the abolition movement, Jim Crow and everything, and the civil rights movement, people would leave that archaic thinking behind. But they haven't, because there are actually people who believe because your dad's black, that's what you are.
No, it's not that he has a black father, it's that he has a black parent. One black parent will make you mixed or biracial. Being biracial means you are two different races. Patrick Mahomes would be white but also black. He is a man, which would make him a black man.
Saying you're black because your dad is, or you're white because your dad is just a dumb statement on its face, but it's also factually inaccurate because you are what your parents are, right?
Oh shit, you are who your parents are. Who could have ever thought of that? We are dealing with a real brainiac here. In all seriousness, I love when people argue about shit that nobody said. She keep bringing up that fathers determine race argument.
Right. Actually, you get a lot of super important traits almost exclusively from your mom's genetics. For example, your ATP function, basically your whole entire mitochondrial makeup is your mom's, right? So that affects your ATP function, your energy output, cell turnover. How you age is dependent on your mom. So if your mom looks great for her age, good news, so will you. Your mom determines your height.
How a good part of what she said is corrected regarding mitochondrial DNA, but it's also important to add more context. Every person share a small amount more DNA from than their mother. They get this mitochondrial DNA from their mother despite biological gender. Mitochondrial DNA is hard to measure but only represents about 1% of our overall DNA. All this yapping for extra 1%.
That the black gene is somehow so dominant and pervasive that it shows up no matter what, and it can just dominate every other type of gene that there is there. And I want to say, if you think that, because I see it's a lot of hoteps, pushing that thinking, the black gene isn't super dominant. And I think also that has some really weird racially motivated undertones to it.
First of all, I want to address the whole black gene stuff. Every genes, despite the race of the person you get from, is extremely similar. Researchers found that only 6% of genetic variation in humans could be attributes to race. With that being said, clearly there is no dominate genes based on race. She is correct about the belief of it being racial, she is just wrong on why that is. The belief of genetic difference came from slave owners believing that any drop of blackness disqualified you from being white. She is now doing the same with Patrick Mahomes by saying he is not a black man.
Blackness, or the genes associated with African descent, can be, I hate to say erased, but like can be changed like within 2 generations. Like the people who would espouse and like preach and like, you know, like fight to their last living breath to say Patrick Mahomes Jr. is a black man, like I 100% doubt that they would say that Sterling Mahomes is a little black girl, okay?
What? She is comparing Patrick's daughter, who is mostly white, to Patrick, who is just as much black as he is white. This should not be that hard to understand.
Like, come on, like, you know, like what are we doing here?
Yes, what are we doing here? Because ain't no way you're going to act like that is the same thing.
Here, we want to get really technical with it. Most ADOS, most black people who have been here for generations have anywhere from 15 to 35% white DNA. So technically, when you are biracial, I mean, you're more white than anything else. Like,
yes, due to slavery, black people can have traces of white in them, but the same can be said about white people when it comes to having black in them. Studies have shown that a white person can have hidden African ancestors as well. So unless she can do a deep dive in Patrick family tree, this is pointless. She also tried to make the point that whether people consider you black as a mixed person is based on your social beliefs, but says it only works for the black side as white people will not accept mixed people. While not seeing she is doing the same thing by not accepting Patrick as a black man.
Because it's almost exclusively the black side that gets claimed, like they're not, it's almost like they're not good enough to be white, but at the same time, if they act too white, then, you know, they're all of a sudden mixed again.
Now she is about to bring up the George Zimmerman stuff that even she admits she was wrong about, but kept it on the video because why not?
You know, depending on who you talk to. And this was evident because early in Patrick Mahomes' career, he had made some comments relative to George Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin and police in general. And in a lot of people's opinion, kind of sided with George Zimmerman. And, you know, he had a good amount of support at that time. But I remember there was a huge uproar about that because people, you know, got really upset. Like, what are you trying to say? And then his heritage was brought up. And all of a sudden, everyone remembered that Patrick Mahomes was mixed, right? But
as I said, he didn't side with Zimmerman at all and even voiced disappointment with the verdict. Pat, who was 17 at the time, replied to a classmate who said a crime didn't occur, which is why Zimmerman was found not guilty. Pat replied, "We didn't know what happened, but a crime could have occurred," referring to Zimmerman actions. He also says he didn't understand why Zimmerman followed Trayvon Martin that night. Now, with that being said, you may ask yourself, what does this have to do with someone's race? The answer is nothing. Candace Owens can surround herself with as many white people as she wants. That doesn't make her any less black.
Black, one of the first two black starting QBs, all of a sudden, Patrick Mahomes is a black man again because, you know, his dad smokes Black and Milds.
The entire black race comes down to Black and Miles. That's just fantastic. And with that being said, I'm going to wrap this video up, but in conclusion, mixed people can't win. If they claim to be black, they aren't black enough, but if they ignore their black side, they get called out for doing so. Also, don't make things complex just because you are trying to separate yourself from other people. When do it stop? First it's mixed people, then it's light-skinned people. If you want to set yourself apart, gain some talents, and don't use stupid stuff like this to put others down.